everything has been warm. I've never have I had to sit down and just cold call tons of people like I used to do in tech.
Ryan Gorman started his recruitment business in March 2021. Now, while every other recruiter in their first year are smashing the phones, he built something different from the start. He built a podcast from day one as a business development tool. He used his LinkedIn account to drive inbound business too. And then he went to Instagram to find candidates that weren't even on LinkedIn.
Where are all these architects and designers? Where are they when they're not looking for a job? And the vast majority of them were on Instagram.
So completely solo at home in year one, he did 93,000 in fees and 60,000 of it profit, all without a single cold call. 4 years later, 250,000, average fee of 12K. He's almost doubled his average deal value. He's got 85% repeat business and 70% net profit.
Our average fee now, so say, is about 12 grand. Other people in our market, it's about 7.5 grand. 85% of our work is just repeat business.
He's recently hired an experienced recruiter and he's got another one coming in, but this nearly didn't happen. Because when you're billing 150K, banking 70% at home for every dinner time with your kids, why bother? But it was the right person at the right time who came along this year. Now Ryan's building a business that a lot of people dream about. No cold calls, a boutique team of top quality people, above average placement values, and 70% profit margin.
I would rather have 10 people billing 300 to 500 grand each than tons of people doing 10 grand. We will be the number one recruitment consultancy within the architectural sector. Like that, I'm certain of.
So this is Ryan Gorman on the RAG podcast. Ryan, welcome to the RAG podcast.
Hey mate, how you doing?
I'm all right, buddy. I'm all right. We are recording this at the end of 16th of December. We've got a few days left of the year. I'm ready to finish. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, mate. I'm starting to feel Christmassy. Watched Home Alone 2 last night, so in a good mood. Had my Christmas jumper on up until recording this, so as soon as we finish, that'll be straight back on. I just didn't want to date this video by having the Christmas jumper on and then,
true. We've just done that by talking about Home Alone, but it doesn't matter. Mate, look, this will be going live in the new year, so people listening, Happy New Year. We're not there yet as we record. But mate, I've just done you a quick introduction. It never does justice. Do us a favour. Give us a quick bird's eye view of who you are, what you do, and then we'll go back and tell the story.
Sure. Really short version. So I'm Ryan. I run a recruitment headhunting search firm that specializes in architecture and design. Architecture being the actual buildings rather than IT, which is what a lot of architecture seems to be these days. Based in London, or just mostly in London, office in Bishop Stortford as well. Servicing all of the UK and internationally, but specializing mostly in senior level strategic hires and increasingly retained search.
Yeah, wicked. And you're almost 5 years old as a business.
Almost 5 years old. Yeah, it's mad that I can't believe it. It's gone so quickly. I think the thing that's been tricky is just that it's felt like a lot less time, and the last kind of 6 to 8 months have been such a whirlwind that when you say 5 years, that sounds like a long time. I think sometimes you expect to have achieved certain things in that time, and the journey's taken me in a completely different direction from what I thought the business was going to be when I started and the reasons why I started it. But we're at an interesting place now. But yeah, 5 years, that's wild.
Well, mate, not many businesses last 12 months, 2 years, so you've done really well. And same, we're 9 years old in March. And I was saying to you before offline, like me and Emma, we kind of had a 10-year plan. Originally, that was what we would do. And then it'd be, we'd sell it and we'd make millions and we'd be retiring. And that ain't going to happen. But it has gone quick. I agree. I'm a lot grayer than I was when I started as well.
Well, mate, I'm a lot bolder than I was when I started.
Did you have like a big cliff when you started?
Yeah.
Love it. So let's go back. Like, you're not obviously from London. Whereabouts are you from up north?
I'm a Yorkshireman. Yeah, I'm from Leeds.
Yeah.
We don't normally venture this far south.
No,
yeah.
No. And how did you get into recruitment in London? Tell us that story.
I think I'm one of those weird people that like actively pursued a career in recruitment rather than just falling into it. Because back before then, I'd studied to be was going to be a chemist, like a full. I'd done my degrees, my PhDs, all in chemistry. Was all ready to kind of be a research scientist in the pharma industry, and I realised at the end of my PhD that it's a bit of an introverted job, and I've always enjoyed being around people, and so someone kind of mentioned the concept of recruitment, and it just blew my mind that was even a job, that was even something that existed. And then found that there was opportunities to do it. Went and interviewed down in London. Didn't expect that I would want to move down to London. I always expected I'd be up in Yorkshire still, but there was just something about the buzz in the office that I went to, and it was a really sunny day in London, so that probably impacted it as well. And then, ultimately, my wife's from Essex, so we were always going to end up moving down here at some point when we had kids. But
Were you already with your wife up north then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got married really young. I think we were about 23, 24 when I got married.
Was she at uni in Leeds or something? How did that work?
Yeah, we both did chemistry at Leeds, and then lived together in York. And then, I accepted this job in London in recruitment, and she was great. Packed up what she was doing, moved down to London. We'd both recently been married, both moved to London. Lucy got a job in Virgin as an EA, and
Where did you move?
Into Balham.
Right. Yeah. Well, we were Clapham North when we did it. It's a great spot when you.
That seems to be where everyone moves to when they move down.
It's the recruitment capital as well, isn't it? Like all recruiters are on the Northern Line. Yeah. Smashed on a Tuesday and Thursday night, but good days. I won't want to do it now, but very, very good days.
I think times are different though now. It was great. Like I loved that. Perfect at the time. Loved it at that time in my life. Living in London. It was amazing.
So going back to your early days in recruitment, then would have made logical sense to have done like recruitment of life sciences or chemistry or something along the. Did you do that?
That was originally the plan. Yeah. So there was this, if you've heard of Recruitment Entrepreneur, they'd set up years ago, there was a thing called the James Caan Talent Academy, and the idea was that they've obviously all these startup recruitment companies all in one hub in London, in Sloane Avenue, and they would interview people interested in recruitment and try and match them up with businesses within the office. And I went down for one of those assessment centres, and originally I'd been matched with, there was an architectural company called Beacon Reeves, and there was a life science company. And just between the time from me wanting to, due to start and actually starting, they were no longer in a position that they could hire. And in fact, at the time I was disappointed, but in fact it ended up being like the best thing that could have happened.
All right, so you took a job thinking you were going into that market, and then by the time you started, they put you on architecture.
Yeah. But the thing is, I'd been offered to join both, and it was a really, really difficult decision. And it was ultimately only because I'd done some life science that I thought it made sense to move into that. When actually, on reflection, the architecture sector and the business that I joined was the more natural fit for me. So
the thing is about that kind of like transition from industry, or at least studying, I think it does help you ramp up faster, but I don't think that lasts for very long. Like, I think, you know what I mean? Like, I remember when I started in recruitment in Australia with a guy called Stefan, who had come from IT support. So we both got a job in IT recruitment. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what an application was versus infrastructure. I had an iPhone, brand new at the time, and I didn't even know how to use apps on that. I was totally a tech phobe. I was an ex-PE teacher, and he was desktop support, right? He knew and we were filling like in infrastructure engineer roles, like frontline. You got a problem with your PC. They were the kind of roles we were filling at the beginning. He knew everything. He'd done the job, and I was like, what? I feel so far behind him. But I'd say 3 months in, and I overtook him, and I was more natural. He was not. He was more introverted. He went back to desktop. He went back to tech. But the knowledge that he had, I don't think that just feels really advantageous at the beginning, I think.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it can allow someone to come in and understand what they're looking at a bit quicker. But I've learned this from working in the architecture sector and hiring recruiters into the business, and having moved into different markets where I've known nothing about those sectors, that the thing that makes a good recruiter isn't if they understand what the role is. It's if they can understand people, right? And if they're driven, and it's all those kind of personality traits. So I think it can give someone a bit of a head start. But like you say, it's
short term.
Mean that they'll have success.
You didn't stay. So how long did you do at Beacon Reeves before you moved on?
3 years.
Yeah. And you moved on to Gravitas, was it?
That's right. Yeah.
What was the driver to move on there?
Well, I look back on those 3 years at Beacon Reeves as like some of the best years of my life. Like it was brilliant. It was startup environment. It was 3 of us to start with, literally just growing the company. Just super passionate about recruitment. Just absolutely loved it. It was absolutely amazing. And being surrounded by all these other entrepreneurs starting up businesses, it was just incredible to learn so much about different people doing different markets. Some were doing contracts, some were doing exec search. It was great, and just being around people a similar age that were all really driven and ambitious, like it was just the perfect place to go and get excited about recruitment. Like it was a perfect place for me to thrive. The reason that I moved on wasn't anything to do with not liking the market or not liking the guys that I worked with or anything to do with the setup. It was just that Mike and Chris, they were the same age as me. When they started up, architecture was a new market to them, and they'd only been running the business for 6 months before I joined. So all of us were kind of in the trenches together, learning it all as we went. And I think I felt that there was more for me to learn. And I think something happened that seems to happen with a lot of startups, and that is that, like, personally, I was having loads of success, doing really well, but I was never really able to like understand why or to define what it was. And then when we would hire people in, it was really hard to replicate success. Or if I'd had a bad month versus a good month, it was really hard to really understand what makes success happen and what doesn't. We always kind of stuck at that, struggled to get beyond that kind of 7 to 10 person head count. And there was a guy that I knew, a guy called Ross Katz, who had been a business manager at Gravitas, and we'd been in touch for a few years. And I'd kind of always thought about, what would it be like to work in a different market? And Gravitas had just been this company who, over that kind of the time that I'd spoken to Ross and from when they started, they'd just year on year revenue growth, headcount growth, like their ability to grow was just so impressive. And they'd done it in a different sector, obviously, that was in IT. So part of me was, you know what, I want to try, instead of going from a really startup feel where there's kind of no KPIs and we don't really track much and we just do what we know is right at the time. I was really keen to see, how does a more corporate company that has grown and scaled, like how have they done it? Like what have they put in place? And also I was just keen to understand what tech was like, because I think when you're working in other sectors, you often look at IT as being like, that's the sector where all the money is. Then let's challenge myself to do something else. So I'd gone from doing kind of quite strategic perm senior hiring within architecture in a startup environment to moving to an IT contract recruitment heavy business that was really rigid and structured. So for me, it was just all about, I knew at some point one day I wanted to start my own business, and I had thought about doing it when I was leaving up at Beacon Reeves, but I just wasn't ready. I didn't know there was still a lot to learn.
So you went and did IT contract recruitment for a bit?
Yeah, so we started up a contract DevOps desk, and then expanded it to do contract and perm. And then I was there, 2.5 years before deciding, it was time for me to go it alone.
So this is really interesting. So you do, like I say, over 3 years in architecture, 2.5 years in tech. Tell us that, where was that? When did that entrepreneurial feeling come back? And you're like, right, now it is, and then how did you decide that you were going to go back to architecture?
So the plan had always been to start my own business at some point. Like I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and it was just a matter of when rather than if. I think for me, I look back on that time at Gravitas with really mixed emotions, because it was the best thing I could have done, but it was putting me in a position where I was having to do all of the things that didn't come naturally to me. I now better understand my personality and where I naturally excel in areas, and it was really pushing me to do all of the things that didn't come naturally. I think the tipping point was when we had our first daughter, Isla. I'd continued working all through COVID. I wasn't furloughed, and which, again, a good thing about working in tech at the time was that didn't really impact anybody in IT. I just got to a point where I wasn't going to work really motivated. I knew I always wanted to start my own business. I was on my way. I was leaving for the house. Like my daughter would still be asleep when I left the house, and it'd be dark. I'd get into the office, I'd do a day's work. I'd come home, it'd be dark again. My daughter was asleep. And I felt like, if you're loving what you're doing, you can kind of stomach some of those sacrifices. But I knew that my time was up. But I was really conflicted. I think the hardest thing was, I knew I wanted to start up when we used to do the kind of mandatory government sanctioned exercise, that we could do during this lockdown. Me and my wife would just wander around pushing the baby around, and we'd talk about me starting up and doing something and how good it would be and exciting would be. But I felt really guilty even thinking about it, because at the time, it was a time where so many people were losing their jobs that I felt guilty for even considering leaving a stable job where I was earning well. Like the company was a really good place to work. I really loved all the people that I worked with, and kind of everything on paper, it was great. And I thought, am I being really selfish taking this huge risk when the market's uncertain? It might not work out, and I've got a child now. But luckily, I think the big thing was, it was actually my wife that kind of gave me that little push to go for it, which was, she just said to me, like, well, yeah, it's a risk. I believe you can do it, but just think, like, what sort of person do you want Isla seeing? Like, do you want her seeing a dad who, do you want her growing up seeing work as a positive thing? That she sees her dad going to do every single day and really loving what he does and having that passion? Or do you want her to see it as just something that you do to earn money? That's kind of stuck with me throughout now, is that kind of doing what you enjoy, hopefully, like, rubs off onto your kids and gives them the view that work isn't something that you should be, dreading doing on a Sunday. It should be something that you're really excited to go out and do, which is exactly how I am now.
Yeah. No, I completely empathize with that. And I do. So obviously I've got a two-year-old daughter that I've been here at home every day, like pretty much. I've put her to bed at lunch just now, and I'll be there tonight straight away. I'll put her to bed every night. I bath her every night. Like, the thought of missing those. How much of that did you give to Gravitas, and did you miss?
Well, when I was at Gravitas, I would just make up. I was just working all the hours, right? Because I knew that I wasn't performing at the level that I wanted to be at. I knew I could be doing better, and I was frustrated. So I was working as much as, I was always the last one to leave the office on the night. So I wasn't seeing any of that, like, with our daughter. I was
So what age
missing it.
what age did you quit? Like, how long did you work while she was born? Like that.
Let me just think. I've probably done about 6 months. I think I did about 6 months after she was born, and those first couple of months. I mean, look, Gravitas were really supportive about everything. They were great. It really wasn't a Gravitas thing. I think it just woke something up in me that reminded me, like, look, why
any company would have expected you back then to be probably go traveling in and out. But was it? Yeah. So was it not like? Were you not in lockdown though? In like the 2021, like in and out of lockdown at that point?
So Isla was born in July.
2020.
So I think we'd in 2020, 2020, and I think we were in a lockdown during the actual birth and stuff, which for anyone, like, it was a nightmare in itself. Just having to sit out in the car while my wife starts labour, like, not being allowed in until she'd progressed. So anyway, that's a separate thing. But there was kind of a couple. I think I went back we were allowed back from lockdown. When was it? A month or so after that, and then we went in for a few months, and then we got locked down around Christmas time again in the south. And then it was that Christmas time where I was like, you know what, come January, I need to just go for it.
So that decision then to start in architecture, not tech, what driven that?
It was twofold. One was that I always really loved that sector. I really loved architecture. I was still always getting calls from people that I'd worked with saying, oh, can you help us recruit? Are you still doing any of it? And so part of me was always a bit like, oh, I wish I could just do that job. Like, I could definitely fill that position if I was doing it. And I just spotted a huge opportunity in the market as well, because there's a big difference between the two markets. Like, tech is really saturated. Oh, it was then. It may be different now, but really saturated with recruiters, especially when you're working a specific tech niche in central London. Really oversaturated with recruiters. So we had to be really fast, really competitive, think of novel ways of approaching clients and doing things, and the different ways to BD to stand out. And then architecture was, it's an incredibly underserviced sector, because, you think of tech, your fees are going to be, decent. In architecture, there's just, as a market, the average fee is about $7,000 ish. There's agencies working at about 15%. And so there's not that same level of saturation. But then also alongside that, there isn't a lot of innovation going on. There's a load of clients that were unhappy with the recruitment service they're getting, because no one's innovating, and no one has to, because there's not a huge amount of competition in the market. I like design. It's a really tangible sector to work on. You help somebody design some sort of cloud product in IT, whereas you help someone who's designed like the Palace of Westminster, or has just done some really big buildings that you can go and visit, and you can think, oh, I've played a part in this by helping recruit the director for the person who designed this building. Like, that's really tangible. And I missed it. I missed it, and I knew that there was a huge opportunity to go in there. And architecture, again, had been hit really hard by COVID. So a lot of the companies that had been bigger recruitment agencies back when I had been working it had either their best staff had just kind of set up their own one-man bands, or they'd had to let people go. So there'd been a big drop in people. And then when the market bounced back, and they needed to hire again, all these companies, there wasn't really anybody out there. All the big recruitment companies had scaled back. So it was also really good timing for me to get in there and grow for it, because there was a real shortage of good recruiters.
Love it. So you make that call, and it's a genuine interesting decision, because your most recent market was tech. And like you say, the average fees, I imagine, if you just look at it purely financially, the tech market was probably there's probably a bigger lucrative play there. Just average deal values and stuff like that. But sometimes how you earn your money is as important as how much, right? Because if you really enjoy it and you enjoy the conversations and you like being involved, then you'll do well in either space. So where did the name come from?
So that's my granddad's surname, actually. He's people often say, oh, is it because houses, you recruit for like architects who design houses and they've got lofts and houses, so it makes sense. I've spent ages trying to think of a name and thought of all sorts of wanky ideas that ended up didn't going with, and they all sounded like something off The Apprentice, and then ultimately just came up with like, my granddad's always been someone I've always had, my dad's amazing. My granddad, though, has always been someone that I've really looked up to. He's very much a traditional Yorkshireman in the sense that really straight talking, really loyal to the people that, his family and his friends and stuff, super hard working. And it was just kind of, it really made me think about like, what do I want the business to stand for, and what values are important to me. And a lot of those things about making sure you're always working really hard for the people and kind of being loyal and being honest and transparent. And because I think a lot of those things are the things that people don't often associate with recruitment, transparency and loyalty and honesty and all of that sort of stuff. So that's where the name came from. And I thought, it's important. It's an important name to me, and what people think of the business is really important to me. So I thought if I attach a name to it that really means something to me, it's going to make sure that I really care about the brand and what people think of Lofthouse Group as a company.
Love it. I genuinely thought it was a play on around houses and lofts too. So no, I get.
There you go, mate.
I think that's a better story than I was expecting.
Although there's all these people now listening who are like, know his mother's maiden name now. Quick, let's get the bank.
Get the social security number. So take us back to that time then. What was it like genuinely in early 2021? The market was in a really good position. It was turning, wasn't it? Fast. I don't think you could have picked many better years in the history of recruitment to start a recruitment business, but take us back.
I mean, it was great. I absolutely loved it. And I think the pressure initially was, where's that first deal come from? Like, that's the thing. Once you get that done, I think you have the belief then that you can do it. I always knew, so it's tricky. Was it a lifestyle business? Was it not? I always knew I wanted to scale the business, but I just didn't know when. So I'd started the business with getting like a proper CRM in place and doing all the stuff that wasn't benefiting me at the time, like having a really elaborate coding system for everyone that we spoke to. But it ultimately did run it like a lifestyle business. I would do a few deals, be like, oh, great, that sorted us for a while, and then come back to it and do a bit more. So I was kind of always up and down with it. I think the thing I really tried to focus on when I started the business is like, what can we do that's different, like tangibly different than what other companies are offering. So at the start, when I started the business, it was starting a podcast right off the bat, just to gain credibility in the market, speak to potential hiring managers, all that sort of stuff, just some sort of social media that we can kind of pump out and let people know who we are. And then other ways was just, architecture has always been an incredibly candidate short market. So as a one-man band at the time, it was really easy. Just you get a good candidate, you can work the candidate, help find them a job. So there's a lot of time focused around how do we generate like exclusive, like good candidates that we can work with exclusively that other agents aren't going to have, so that we can genuinely go to companies and say, hey, look, we do have people that aren't necessarily on the market, aren't on LinkedIn, aren't sticking their hand up and looking for a job. So that was that first year. It was very, very stressful. Like it was, you kind of constantly go from feeling like you're incredibly rich to shit, how am I going to pay the mortgage? I think that was the constant driver. But I knew what I was doing it for. I'd got my daughter. That was really important. And I think what I did really enjoy was just being able to do what I thought was right at the time for the business, rather than constantly having to think. When you're employed by someone else, you're constantly having to think, oh, I've got to deliver against these numbers, or if I'm doing something, I need to not just do it, but think about how I'm going to explain it and report it back to someone. It was really liberating just going, I think today it's going to make sense to add 100 people to the database. And even though I won't make a single call, it's definitely going to pay off.
Yeah.
And that was something that I really wrestled with, was this balance between working on the business and working in the business. I think when you're starting out, it's just about getting money in the bank. I think once we kind of got them first couple of deals done, that kind of set the stage then for kind of the longer term stuff.
How did you find motivating yourself when you'd previously worked for other people? It's on you now, right?
Oh, really hard. Yeah, it's awful. Like it's I found that it's the same with home working. I find that when you're really motivated, it's fine. I think the hardest time was when you're on your own. I did constantly think to myself, would it have been easier if I'd started up with somebody else, or should I have done it myself like I have done? It's very lonely starting the business up. Luckily, my wife was great, and she would just kind of listen to me talking about stuff, probably not taking half of it in, but just saying, oh, okay, Ryan, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that must be really hard. But it is hard. I think just not being around other people and not having people to bounce ideas off was difficult, but also made me grow. It really made me just think, well, there's nobody above me to ask this question. I just have to decide what I think's right and go for it.
Wow.
Which has really set me up now. Like, it's now that we're growing and we've got staff and we're super busy. It is great now having that, being able to just make those decisions rather than constant. I've always been a very collaborative person, so I really like chatting to people and coming up with ideas and discussing things, but having to just work as, the one-man army was stressful, fun, kind of all of those things wrapped into one.
Yeah. Again, I started with Emma and another guy, Mark. So I don't remember. I've not got any example to compare that. I can only say that when it was a pair, there was three of us at the time. I didn't find the motivation difficult because we had to pay for three. Like we had three salaries to try and find, but we also were in it together. So good and bad, you had someone to talk to. So I can only imagine. All the podcasts I've done loads of solopreneurs. It takes a different type of person, I think.
Now that I've got another senior leader in the business, like, I can see just how much more beneficial and how much more quickly we could scale had I done that from the start. But it's like anything in it, you've got to pick the right person to do it with, where you align on values and you want the same things out of it. And I think even I didn't know what I really wanted out of the business. All I knew is that I was really passionate about doing a really good job in recruitment, really excited to get my own business set up. And I knew that I wanted to approach recruitment in my way. And the only way to do that was to start my own business. So that kind of led me onto it. But I think, had the right person, had like Louis, who's joined us now, had he been looking at the time that I set up, or had he been at the level he is now at that time, like, it would have made sense to just scale and we could have done it so much more quickly. Yeah. But it's luckily at the time I was loving my job, so that was enough to kind of keep me going. It's just those hard days that are it's hard to kind of dig yourself back out of the hole. A deal drops out, you ring someone up and they tell you to go do one. It's but again, mate, look, I find that you learn more from that, right, than just doing what's easy. So I'm kind of grateful for all of it.
100%. So how did you perform? Like, if you go back to say March 2022, what was your first year billings? How did you get on?
I think it was like 93 grand. Right. I invoiced in my first year. And I kind of caveat with like my first 3 or 4 years of saying it was kind of part-time, in that, like, I did all them things that you mentioned. I was there and I was working from home. I was there for every single bath time, every breakfast, dinner. Like, my kids knock on my door, I'm not saying no. Yeah. I have to spend a bit of time with them there and then. And I'm the most distractible person in the world anyway, as it stands. But yeah, it was about 90 grand. And I think my costs I remember our like profit at the end of the year was about 60 grand. Yeah. And that was after paying myself and my wife, the kind of bog standard 12 grand salary each.
Yeah. So that's sound. Like, six figures in year one, pretty much with part time. Like that's just insane. Without the bollocks of everything you get as an employee, but you learned so much, and you were there. When did you have your second kid?
It's like 2.5 years after our first.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
like 2020. God, you're asking me, you're embarrass me now, not knowing different birth dates and stuff.
2023, early 23.
It's like Jan 23. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, like I say, you've got a bit of time to build the business before you go again on the early stage stuff.
Yeah, so I'm in that. I'm thinking about this when I was reflecting on the business. Like, I've never worked in the business when I've not had I've not had kids. And I do think to myself, like, oh my God, imagine if I'd started this business like before having kids. Like, I bet you'd have so much more time. But
yeah, that was
I don't know. I think that if you can deal with kids and the number of times you have to get up in the night and all the challenge, I mean, it's amazing, right? Yeah. Having kids is, for me, I think it's the best. It's what life's all about. But I do think that, like, if you can deal with all of that stuff and still turn up for work, nothing builds resilience like, having constant illness in the house for like 2 months straight.
Literally yesterday, my daughter had like the maddest blocked nose and she was crying her eyes out. Her eyes were swollen. We had this little pipette thing we were putting up her nose and sucking out snot. That was my lunchtime. And then she was in my bed overnight, not last night, night before, like just like a burning ball next to me in the bed, but she was there and we didn't sleep much. And I get it, but yeah, it's what you do. It's literally the most important thing in life. I'm interrupting today's episode to tell you about remote recruitment and what they're doing differently. Okay, they literally remove overheads and unlock productivity in your business. And they do that by connecting you with top tier South African talent. This helps you reduce payroll costs, eliminate compliance headaches, and boost output. So you don't have to worry about national insurance and PAYE. Just get brilliant people hired through their South African entity, and they support you every step of the way of finding them, onboarding them, payrolling them, the whole piece. And they also help you build flexible teams faster, so you can get virtual assistants, operational leads, marketing, and BD experts. Remote recruitment deliver hand-picked candidates with predetermined skills, but they also train them too. These guys then come in with the right mindset, hit the ground running, and deliver, whether it be shortlists, trials, marketing, whatever. And you get a 12-month free replacement guarantee on every hire, which ensures you're always in control of your team.
Yeah. And actually, like some people, it would put people off hiring someone if they've got kids. Like, having now had kids myself, and I think about how I am as a person now in terms of just like my resilience and how I approach things. I'm such a better person in my job and as a manager now, having had kids, than before. So actually, if someone had kids, like, I think they'd probably make a better recruiter, because, oh my God, like, nothing in the world, nothing in recruitment is more stressful than when you've got a poorly child or an ill child, or something happens to them, or that kind of just having to be sleep deprived and still keep going, and the crying in the night, and the last thing you want to do is get up out of bed, but you do it. Like, you learn to just do the things you don't want to do. I think there's so many transferable things from being a parent. Also, just allowing your kids to do stuff, letting them try something and knowing that they're probably going to fall over or it's not going to work. And I find that that's helped me as a manager let go of things and say, do you know what, I'm happy for you to have a go at that, and it might work, it might not, but let's just see. I was kind of always I wanted to be involved in absolutely everything. I don't know if you found it with your first child. We found that we're really overparented. You're constantly trying to jump in and help them and do this because you think you're doing the best thing for them. They're trying to reach for something and you're like, oh, here you go, let me get you it. And you realize you're actually, with our second one, we kind of couldn't really do all of that stuff, and she developed even quicker. And
I think
kind of being more
because my wife, because I've got two stepkids and my wife had been through it all twice. I think we probably didn't. I took her lead on things, and she was like, "Just leave her. Like, she'll be fine." So I think if it was me and her for the first time, I would have been naturally very much like that. And Lauren says when Amira was our eldest, she was like, everything. We were completely like that. Whereas I just took Lauren's lead, and I think we have been pretty chilled with Aries in that respect. She's just she's 2 now. She started nursery. She's swimming on a Tuesday. Life. She's busy and she's fun, and but she's got an interesting dynamic because my stepkids are 12 and 11 and 12, so she's got 4 people that are quite big around her. So she gets so much attention, like ridiculous amounts of attention, and I'm worried that's going to turn this kid into an absolute like nightmare because she's never on her own. She never has to deal with stuff on her own. Like we needed to give a bit of, I don't know, we'll see. she on one hand she gets more love than you could imagine, but on the other, maybe she's dependent on other people's validations. I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
I think we overthink these things as parents,
Yeah.
don't we? Often, and I just think that if you love them, that's enough. Like, some kids who don't get much and this will turn out great.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
So we go back to the business then. In terms of 90 grand in year one,
Yeah.
You talked about that. What I like is you mentioned the desire to be different, the desire to find talent that perhaps your competitors don't, and definitely the in-house teams in the market or their own companies don't. And I know you did some. Obviously, you went into my training. I think it was 22. Was it early 22? You did our training.
Yeah. It was. It was literally as soon as the first invoice came in.
Yeah.
It went straight on the hot toe training.
21 then, wasn't it? So yeah, you did it really
Yeah,
early
it
on.
was. Yeah, it would have been my
But then
April.
You got
May.
the podcast. You start building your brand on LinkedIn. But I know you started dabbling with Instagram as well, didn't you? Which is not a common theme. So tell us how this podcast, LinkedIn branding, and Instagram strategy, what impact did it actually have?
So I'd identified early on that using social media for, I guess, it could be used for recruitment, and it was more about brand building. I think doing the course with you really reinforced that how important it was. Obviously, you put your own spin on it and you start to think about it. But what it really did enforce in my mind was kind of set the baseline of what needs doing and the principles behind why we should be doing it and how we would do it to generate business. And so the nobody was doing podcasts back when I first decided to do it. I think it was probably yourself. There was probably you and a couple of other recruiters, but there was nothing in architecture really, or there was certainly no recruiters in our market doing it. So I'd thought, look, and also approaching the podcast with yes, it's going to give something back to the audience, but also it's for BD. Like that's the reason why we're doing it. It is, I'm not going to get a million views, but it's to generate BD and create something interesting for people looking. LinkedIn, like you teach on the course, it's about building your personal brand, getting people to know who you are before you actually approach them. The Instagram piece came around because, firstly, let me caveat this. I am not a social media guy. Like in my personal life, I never use it. Before I started doing Instagram for the business, I didn't even understand the point of it. Really, it's just people taking pictures of the dinners and stuff. That's where I thought
that is still Instagram.
Yeah, and I couldn't figure out. But what I did was ask myself the question was like where are the candidates that we want to speak to? Because I think we all know that often the best people, they're not on LinkedIn, they're not applying for jobs, they're not the ones that are actively looking. So where are these people? And it was something interesting you said in the LinkedIn training that you did, which was around like people going on LinkedIn to consume content rather than just going on there to find a job. And so my question then was, well, where are all these architects and designers? Where are they consuming content? Like, where are they when they're not looking for a job? And the vast majority of them were on Instagram. And it seems to be the case with a lot of people in the various design industries. They spend a lot of their time on Instagram. So I thought, how do we go about engaging these people, getting them to know who we are, and how can we use Instagram as a BD tool? So I've got step-by-steps now that we use for people who join the business, and Louis done that. And I started it with the company one. I brought a guy in initially just to kind of consult with me about how to create the various content for Instagram, and he helped me with it. But in theory, what we did was, most recruitment agencies were doing an Instagram page that was basically, here's a job, what's this? Do you like this? And you've got to think about like, that's who's going to like that post. Like, it's going to, unless it's someone who wants everyone to know that they're looking for a job. So my first point was like, how do you create content that people feel comfortable engaging with? So my idea was, right, cool, let's just create a page where we show the various architectural projects that different like target clients or studios have done, put them all in one page where an architect can just follow this page and see lots of different inspiring designs that might inform the work that they're doing. They can just follow our one page, see everything. And we would tag all of the clients that we're posting in our things, so they're seeing who we are constantly, kind of just giving exposure to the market. So the idea was, how do we generate these candidates, create a page that's going to bring them in, and then every now and then advertise a job or show them that we're hiring for something, or use the stories to show them what we're doing. So that was the principle, was just to build the following But you'll know Instagram's really hard to find people because it's not like LinkedIn where you can
Job
search
titles.
by company or location or like stuff like you can't do that. So we had to then think, well, how do we grow it? How do we grow it beyond that? How do we get the right sorts of people to follow us? But in short, yeah, it was create a page that people feel comfortable following, liking. It isn't just about recruitment. It is like giving back to the industry. It's something that a resource that architects will find useful because it's just bringing all these good designs together. And then once we've created that, we've then leveraged that to generate candidates and do BD and get business from it.
Well, love it. What's the page called?
It is Lofthouse Group. It's just Lofthouse Group on
Yeah.
Instagram. Yeah, so that was the guinea pig to begin with. My colleague Louis joined and he started growing his own personal Instagram now. Well, his work personal one. My plan is to do the same with me now, moving forwards, and kind of shift it from the business to kind of my own one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the principle behind it, and it's worked so well. Like when we've had tangible results, that's the thing. It's really hard to attribute a specific fee amount because what we found with Instagram along with LinkedIn is it often makes people more receptive to your approaches when they already have been following you on social media and they feel like you know you. So it doesn't do the work for you. But we've had two really specific examples where we get a lot of exclusive candidates from it. So they'll see our page, they'll be following us for a while, and then they'll get in touch and say something like, hey, look, the sorts of designs you're sharing, that's the sort of stuff I'm really passionate about. Like, have you got opportunities for me with those sorts of companies? And often we're getting people that aren't on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So we're getting a lot of kind of very placeable candidates off the back of that. But then from a client perspective, I've had an example where one of the associate directors from a company's got in touch and gone, oh, if you're recruiting for the sorts of companies that you're posting pictures of there, and I can see the stuff you're doing, we could do with your help to hire people who would like those sorts of projects. So we've had that. And then also the kind of just the passive BD of every time we're putting a post up, we're tagging a company in it who are seeing us and they're liking and engaging with our Instagram post. And a lot of them advertise their jobs on Instagram. So it's just this kind of networking, but on a different platform and just having to put a bit more thought into how you engage the people.
I love it. And I think it works really well in your space because of how visual architecture is. I'm not sure it'd be as easy in, say, cloud or DevOps or cloud technologies. I mean, I think it's possible, but I don't think it's as easy. I think you've got a really clear focus to do it because it's an aesthetic space, isn't it? It's beautiful. The designs they're great. But I love how you've thought outside the box and done that. And then, so did that plus the LinkedIn plus the podcast, was that your business development strategy, candidate attraction strategy? What else were you doing on top of that?
Yeah, mostly that, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like I've never have I had to sit down like I used to do in tech and just sit down and cold call tons of people. Like everything has been warm. Every now and then it's been a reintroduction to someone, and it's like it's the first time I've spoken to them, but I'll have seen that they'll have looked at my page, or they'll have liked a post, or will be engaged in some other way. But that was mainly that was BD. It was using, especially at that size where it was just me, there was enough inbound stuff coming through from candidates. Obviously, the typical stuff of lead generation and converting them, and that sort of stuff to win work. But yeah, the vast majority of it was just candidate led, social media led, a lot of inbound stuff.
It's great. It's the dream. A lot of people are there banging cold calls every day still, and you've got your own business around your family, 6 figures, and you've got it coming to you. So how did the business progress, and when did the growth strategy of hiring come up?
So year on year, our fees net fee income had been going up because as always constantly pushing to either increase fee percentages or increase the salaries or the levels of positions that we're recruiting for. It went up and up every year, which was really reassuring, even just on my own. And I still knew that I wanted to hire someone at some point because I was in a position where I was turning down a ton of work, like constantly having to turn down work, which was great because I could turn down the lower commitment work or the stuff that wasn't what I wanted to work on. But it was twofold. One, I knew I wanted to hire, but I kind of kept the company as it was, ready to grow, ready for when we found the right person. And I was really lucky that someone that I'd worked with, and there's a guy called Louis who's in the company now, who's an associate director with us, who's part of the leadership team. I'd worked with him back in Gravitas, and really different to me, really good, really driven, really organised. And I'd always thought to myself, look, I need a Louis in the team. Like, I need someone like him to grow the business. So I spent a bit of time trying to find someone like that. Couldn't find that. The time ended up being right that he wanted to join, and
Was he coming from
that
technology,
is
doing
what kind
exactly
of
what you did? The transition
what's
from
that? Sorry.
was he doing the transition from technology to architecture that you did?
Oh mate, so he'd worked all sorts of markets. He'd done tech in London, and then moved to do engineering, and then had done some life science, and then was coming to us. So I mean, fortunately, the two of us we've always worked on new desks. Every company we've ever worked at has always been building a desk from scratch. So the idea of building a market up is it's second nature. We understand how you do it from
Yeah.
scratch. So yeah, he'd never done architecture either, but it aligned a lot with what I knew his style of approach. You know, architects, they don't want the hard sell. They're people, they're creatives. They move jobs not for money particularly, but it's about an enjoyment in the work that they do. So it takes the sort of person that's willing to listen and really understand a person. It's not just about getting them an extra 10 grand. It's about trying to, really dig deep and get to know that person and approach it in a really ethical, correct way to do well, which I knew Louis was, and I knew that that's exactly the way I wanted to build the business. So we were in a position ready to grow, and it just happened that he was ready to move, hence him joining.
When was
And
that? When did he join?
he joined in August, beginning of August
This
this
year.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year. But in March, April, so our years always start on the 1st of April.
Yeah.
So as of the 1st of April, that was when I'd made the decision, like, right, where we're focusing on what we do now. Lofthouse Group specializes in senior and strategic hiring within the architecture and design sector. We don't need to do the junior stuff. We go in and we speak to the companies about their strategy, and we understand the pain points, and we help them create roles if they need to.
Yeah.
And I brought in executive search and retained search into the business model as well at that point. And so we were in a really good position set up to be an attractive business for people to want to join. And it just happened that Louis was ready to join at the same time, and that has now snowballed into where we are now, which has been a really, really exciting. Like the last 9 months, it's so exciting. It's interesting because I had all these ideas and the vision of where I want the business to go, and these last months, it's just happened,
Right.
And so it's.
So what were you billing at the end of 2024 / early 5? That what did you build up until the end of last year's accounts that made you go, it's time to change now?
So I think I'd done about 140, 150 on my own, which, to be fair, like at the time, I was like, this is great. Like when you think about like profits margins are about 50%. I think we were at about 70 grand costs for the business, and then I think we did about 100 grand in profit, and that was amazing. Whilst also being able to spend time with my family and stuff. But
it's brilliant.
I got to a point where I wanted to grow it.
Yeah. So you're doing that, and then you decide, I'm going to grow, I'm going to multiply, and I'm going to look at higher fees. I'm going to look at what sort of roles did you start turning away?
Typically anything below about 45, 50 grand salary is not really what we do. There's always a balance between the commitment on the job and the level of the role and what the fee percentage would be and that. But typically now our sweet spot, or what we generally work on, is our average fee now, so say, is about 12 grand, whereas other people in our market it's about 7.5 grand. Our percentages are anything from kind of 18 to 25% that we're working on. Salary is up to.
Is it all perm?
All perm. Yeah. And about a third of our revenue comes from retained. Is retained work now.
But it just makes sense. And the thing is, working the roles at 7 grand, it's typically not that much more work than the roles at 12 or any more. It's not much more work to focus on a 12 grand role. It's the same process, right?
And if anything, I'd say that the more strategic senior positions they take a lot of work to find. It's harder to find the people because there's a smaller pool of people. But I would say the people know what they want a bit better. When someone's a director, they're less likely to mess you around. They're less likely to move forwards with things that don't align with where they want to take their career. They understand themselves a bit better. So actually, you find that the processes, whilst it's hard to source people and it takes a lot of time market mapping and building the trust, and you have to have that network of people in the first place as well, which fortunately I do now, but they generally tend to go a bit smoother to the processes.
So moving from solo, like you say, consistently doing over 100k a year, 150, banking profit, good life, you then go, right, I'm gonna grow. Was there a vision mapped out, or was it just let's get one person and see how that goes? Like, where did you play it?
My problem, Sean, is that I'm all vision.
Right.
I just can't not see opportunities in things. And the thing I struggle with is focusing down on things, because I'm constantly saying, oh my God, there's something there that we should be doing that. No one else is doing that. Why aren't we pursuing that yet? So I had a vision for all sorts of different stuff. I mean, bottom line vision, or the kind of the granular details, is increasing fees every year.
Yeah.
Because that's important for the business in general, increasing the level of positions that we're working on. But bigger picture, I mean, look, ultimately we will be the number one recruitment consultancy within the architectural sector. Like that I'm certain of. It's just about us taking the steps to do that, and we'll focus on the senior stuff, which will feed into everything else. How quickly we'll do it and how we go about doing it is, we'll see, because I think the landscape's changing so much in terms of tech and how we enable ourselves to do it. But ultimately, the vision is we have a team of people that absolutely love recruitment itself. You know, the people that we hire aren't going to be ex-architects or people that probably not going to be people who've worked in the architectural sector. It's people that are really passionate about recruitment, are really driven, and just want to be part of something that's growing. I would rather have 10 people billing 300 to 500 grand each than have a team of tons of people doing 10 grand, even though it's a bigger risk to the business having higher billers. I would much rather have people that are getting a lot back from it as well. And I think that's the thing. The goal is we want people that are billing well. And it's not because I want to make tons of money. It's because if you're billing well and you're getting repeat business and you're doing a good job, you're obviously adding a lot of value to the market. And that's what's important to me, is that we're doing
I'm going to hire, though, was it like this is a 10 person plan, or was it let's get one and see how we go? Because you quite, I imagine you get quite used to working on your own after. At the beginning it was tough, but 4 years later you've developed some pretty good routines. And I'm asking this because there's quite a lot of listeners that are solo that don't know whether they should hire or not. Like they're not sure whether the juice is worth the squeeze to take someone's shit on and split fees and the costs attached. So that's why I'm pressing on it on purpose.
Yeah, well, I was on and off about hiring someone for ages, because I was like, it's comfortable, it's great, we're doing all right, I could just do it on my own. It was something that I constantly wrestled with. But then when the opportunity for Louis to join came up, I thought it's hard to find good recruiters, isn't it, that you trust and that work in the way that you will. And I thought it was silly for me to not hire him, so I did. But then I knew once I hired him that it wouldn't make sense for me to hire someone like him and then not grow the headcount. So I then said in my mind, well, look, once we've got Louis on board, once he's up and billing, it's got to be every 6 months we've got to hire another person to kind of support the ambition and the stuff that now that we're going, we could go. And actually, I think the thing that I realized upon hiring him is that, similar to when you start a business, you imagine it's going to take a ton of work. Like, oh God, I don't know how to start a business. Like, how do you even register a company and business bank and all that? Hiring someone is the same, where it's actually so much easier than you think it's going to be this bigger deal than it actually is. And so once you hire one, it's the hardest is hiring the first, because you have to get all the processes in place. But the subsequent ones afterwards have been.
So what impact did that hire have? Let's just break down having Louis in, going from, let's say, 150 peak on your own, and you turning away work. What has been the reality 6 months on?
I mean, even just from a revenue perspective, from April to December, so what, in the last 9 months, we've already done over 250 grand perm. And actually, Louis only been here like 2 or 3 months. Right. So it's
but you were obviously peaking yourself, and then you've brought him in, and it's like
And that was it. I think the other thing about hiring was that constant fear of making sure you've got the cash reserves in the business to do it. Because what I don't want to be is that guy that hires someone and you bring somebody in and they've got a month to do a deal or they're out. Like I wanted to have a safety net of at least 6 months for somebody to come in, become acclimatized, and get up and billing, and have at least that safety net for someone. So part of it was that the start of my year had been really good, and so I had that money to kind of feel safe about bringing somebody in. But I mean, Louis himself has come in, and just by I'd always put structures in place and an idea of how someone could do it and how to approach the market. And he's done over 50 grand in the space of, like, what is it, 2.5 months?
Yeah,
ish.
perfect. And is he finding his own work, or is he servicing what you're giving him and you're spreading it between the two?
Both really. And the idea between when I bring in this next person into our senior leadership team, the idea is my role is going to be a lot more focused on client BD work. Because at the minute we get like 80, I worked it out, it was like 85% of our work is just repeat business from clients that are giving us, returning work, which is amazing. And it's, you're not gonna turn away or not service those accounts, right? But I get itchy. I'm constantly thinking, I want to bring in new clients. I want to take this message to more companies. I want to take this way of working to new companies. When we've seen the impact it's had on the businesses we work with, I just want to do more. So he's been doing both. He's been signing new clients. And I think the one thing that is good about the architecture sector is, again, because it isn't overly saturated, if you've got good candidates or you've got a good approach or you know how to recruit, it's not difficult to get your foot in the door with new people. Because it's not overly saturated. So that's really encouraging for people.
I imagine
joining.
I might be wrong, but there's different size architecture practices. They're probably founder led as well, and you can get on with people that run businesses, and it's not just like dealing with massive organizations where you're on like huge supplier lists. I imagine it's like
it is. It's so different in that even the big corporates, yes, with the big corporates you'll get PSLs, but we tend not to do a lot with those sorts of businesses. Where I really enjoy it as a business owner is dealing with the companies where it's straightforward to work with them. You're a 50-person company where the person who's heading up the interviews is also the person who's in charge of the finance, who's also in charge of HR, and they can ultimately make those decisions. So
it happens quick, it moves well, you get the relationships. I love it. So tell us then, what is the roadmap now? Where are you heading?
So we've got another person who's going to be joining us early 26, January, February time, and that'll form the kind of the core leadership team.
Is that someone with experience as well?
Yeah, around the same amount as Louis, about 8 to 10 years of experience as well. Wow. Not worked in architecture either, which is a plus for me. But matches all the values. There's Louis, who's very process driven and really organized. We've got this other person that's going to be joining who's quite people focused and also both really good recruiters. And then there's me that's just keen to go out and just do BD all the time. So that's the idea. And like I said, minimum another person every 6 months. In terms of revenue goals, I mean, Louis is a 300 grand biller. I would aim to be doing something around that, probably less if I'm spending more of my time doing BD and feeding the other people. But realistically, people working in our company should be doing between 200 and 300 grand per a year. And I don't want to plan too far ahead.
500k for the next, is that the next milestone to hit?
That's it, yeah. But whilst keeping ourselves like really profitable and not spending on what we don't need to, like just really focusing on putting everything back into the business for growth. And look, beyond that, I speak to people who are constantly asking me what's next, like what's going to be happening in 5 years, 10 years. And I really struggle to say, like, because I think one of the benefits of being a smaller company is being able to be agile and adapt to market conditions. And if there's a certain niche that we know we want to expand into, do we bring someone in to head that up? Probably. But all I know for now is that the goal is that we are the go-to company for anything strategic within architecture. When a company's not just looking for someone to chuck them CVs, they're wanting someone who can actually sit down with them and really understand their business and make recommendations around the types of people that they could have based on what we know about the market. That's where I want to be. It's hard around revenue goals because I've never been someone who's really driven by money. As a weird thing to say when you're a recruitment owner, but I don't really want for much, you know. I don't need fancy cars, and you know, I've got my happy life with the kids and the family, and we're really, as long as we've got the safety net and we're happy, that's amazing. But for me, I've always seen like the revenue as being almost just like a measure for success. Really, it's just how well are you doing. I'm not thinking, oh, great, because that's going to buy us a holiday abroad and stuff like that. I'm constantly thinking, well, if we bring revenue up, that means that we're able to hire that person, or we're able to explore that other opportunity, or you know, we can move into a bigger office or something like that. So I kind of struggle to go for a.
Are you all based together then? Do you work every day? How do you run your like, operation from a day-to-day working?
So we do 3 days in the office together and 2 days working from home, basically. We've got a co-working space in Bishop Stortford. We will also work 1 to 2 days a week. Sorry, 1 day every week in London, where they'll just be client.
Is Louis near you? Does he live in Essex as well?
In Cambridge. Yeah, so it's a bit of a journey down. I mean, look, we're still figuring out what we do about where we ultimately want our office to be, but this has been great because, you know, we can get into London, we can get into Cambridge, we can easily drive up the M11 to drive to our clients, and we do really like to meet the people that we deal with. So, it's been, and also the costs as well. When you're thinking of when another thing when you're running your business, you've got to factor in the costs, and office prices in London are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And another issue I found is that some of the companies I deal with, you know, you're asked to meet them, you know, for a team, you'd have to go into their office and have a chat. And the problem is that, especially at this senior level that I'm dealing with, if you're dealing with people with multiple locations, you're jumping on a Teams call and you'd meet the one person in London, but there's 4 other people on all in different offices in a Teams meeting anyway. So you don't, there's no benefit being in London.
It's the current climate we're in. Do you think you'll always have an office though? Like, would you never go remote with the business and just all meet here?
Yeah, I think I want an office. Do you know what? I think it's because I think what I'm trying to do without realizing it is try and recreate that environment that I had in the first recruitment company I worked at, which was just everyone in an office together, having a laugh. Everyone's really good mates. Everyone's competing, but friends with each other, passionate about it. So I, even just selfishly, you know, I want people around me, but you know, we will. I don't mind hybrid working. I just need to be around people. You know, selfishly, I need to be around people. Hence why I moved into a co-working space, even when it was just me running the business, because being shut up in a little office was just soul destroying. And I just need to be around people.
It's funny because I paid for a little office, and I've done co-working, and now I've got my little office in, like, it's next to my house, right? It's my old garage. This is what the studio that we've built. But I absolutely love just being able to nip in the house, see my wife, see my daughter, jump back in here, and then get out and about when I want to. I don't think, personally, I just don't need anything more. It might be different when she's at nursery and my wife's at work, because my wife's only in work on the days, like on a Friday now, and so she's always around. But if they're both out of like she's at school and my wife's at work, I don't know if I'll feel any different then. But right now, because I'm on Zoom all day. Like, I'm always on video calls. I never feel like I'm on my own anyway. Like, I'm always talking to someone.
I mean, that's good. I mean, I've started playing with the ideas of VAs, and you know, that's fine. I think that sort of role is great. But in recruitment, especially with people coming in and learning a new market, nothing beats just being able to sit next to someone and them just absorb it and listen to what you're saying. And for me, anyway, I think especially in the onboarding, once someone's up and running, like, don't matter where they work, like, as long as we see each other every now and then. Even when Louis works remotely, like, we're on Teams like 3-4 times a day together, just chatting through ideas and talking through stuff. So
it's quite interesting though, I think, because obviously my next question and final question was really around AI in architecture. Like, what do you see as the impact going to be? But I do think there's something pretty pure about, as the world goes really digital, creating like a business that has like like let's say 10 high quality recruiters working together, like premium people interacting face to face. I think there'll be something special about that, because it was the only way before. Then it'll be distributed teams all over the world, and then these little pockets of really high quality people working together, I think, will stand out. I think it'll be really cool.
Well, I think the thing I've tried to avoid is that I can see the industry kind of going one way, and that is that obviously mass adoption of AI. And actually, we're adopting AI in a lot of the processes that we use. However, I can see that what's going to happen is lots of agencies are going to massively adopt AI, and the same agencies that just used to do spray and pray and low quality recruitment will do the same thing, but they'll use AI, and then they'll use those efficiencies to compete on price, and then it's going to be a race to the bottom again. And that's not really somewhere where I think that the future of recruitment lies, or a rat race I have any interest in being in. I'm keen to pivot away from that and go, look, cool, that's that. We want to do really high quality service driven recruitment rather than competing on price. I think that's ultimately where the industry will go.
Yeah.
It'll be contingent, low fee recruitment, because a lot of the people have become more efficient and the costs have dropped because they've got rid of all of the manual work, and that always happens. People just start competing on price then, and then really high level consultative recruitment, which we're putting ourselves in that second camp.
So my question is around in the architecture space. Like, how do you see AI impacting the industry? Because I'm sure they use it from a design perspective.
Yeah,
but there's people behind it right now.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who are kind of getting whole social media followings in the architecture world just based on their use of AI to design things, and it's really cool. I think where I imagine you'll probably see a lot more of it, and this is based off of a conversation I had with a director a few years ago, was that there are already programs where you can tell a software how you want a room to be, and it'll just create all the drawings and create a 3D model, and you can see it very quickly. I imagine what you're probably going to start getting more of is how nowadays you can just you can use software to kind of help you with legal documents and all that sort of stuff. There's going to be a similar thing with architecture, where I think there's already a website actually called Resi, where if you're having like a house extension done, or you're just having something done to your home, you can input all of the information, and it just does a lot of it for you, and you can design a lot of your house build online, and then they come in and finish it off.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of where you would need an architect to help you with for legal purposes and to make sure that designs are compliant. I reckon a lot of that will be done by software, initially by the architectural companies that will use software to get more work done more quickly. But then it won't be long until the tech company comes along and goes, do we even need the architecture company? Can we use the software to kind of remove them from it? And so I think it's interesting. There's a lot of discussion around this in architecture a minute around how will the role of an architect change. It's because it will. It's not just going to be people sitting down and drawing anymore. It's going to be the soft skills. It's going to be the design, the things that maybe AI can't quite do yet, although it's getting quite close.
I think it's going to be, they're going to have to be better at using AI than your average person. Like, your average person will be able to use it to design something pretty basic, maybe, but to get a complex design and make sure it's robust and legal and everything, I think that's where you're gonna have to pay for a better premium service. So maybe they, like you're not going to work on the lower roles. You're going to go up. Maybe that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to just go up the food chain a little bit.
And I think there's a reluctance as well there's a reluctance to some extent of that. Architecture has always been very slow at adopting new technology, just as an industry. And I can see even more pushback now with what happened with Grenfell. That is a huge topic within the architectural world, and there's loads of new legislations that have been brought in that slow the processes down. And I can see cases like that giving even more reason for why they wouldn't want to adopt tech and something major happen like that again. But who knows? Again, there are people much more qualified than myself to that'll know how AI is going to be using it.
But you do need to, as a talent acquisition specialist in that space, you've got to think, well, what talent is going to be relevant in 2 years' time? Like, that's your job, right? So you've got to be asking.
You call me out there, Sean. Shit, I ain't got a clue. Wait, the company's going to be toast in a couple of years.
You got to ask that. But you'd be surprised how many people I meet who don't ask that question. Like, they don't ask. They're scared to ask that question to their clients. I'm like, you've got to ask it. You've got to.
What we are seeing is companies are becoming more multidisciplinary. Like, you'll see some architectural practices that are hiring software developers and stuff that are using automation, or like actual dedicated IT guys that are there to bring in new systems and processes. And it's starting with the bigger firms, the bigger corporate practices. Then it'll generally kind of work its way down. But there are a few, that kind of AI in architecture is still like right at the start.
Right at the beginning.
So it's interesting. I don't think anyone knows with certainty yet how much of an impact it is.
How many architecture practices are in the UK? Do you know?
thousands.
Yeah.
Depends. There's a ton that are, I think like 90% of them are less than like 5 people. So there's tons of like one-man bands and startups.
Yeah.
But there's kind of like 100 that are your kind of major big ones that are probably of about 60, 70 registered architects plus. But yeah, they're quite a lot.
Yeah. Ryan, I really appreciate your honesty, and I think your journey is really, it's just a really authentic story. It's really relatable for a lot of people listening, and you've covered a lot of the stuff that people are gonna. I want people to listen to these episodes and be like, I can imagine, one or two things I've listened to can help me take my journey, and from innovation of Instagram to getting the 6 months of money in before you made that hire, and actually debating whether you need to make that hire because you're making profit. Like, all these things are things that are going to go through people's heads, but I think you just give off a level of like passion. I think you clearly love your business. You can tell you love your business. You can just see it oozing out of you, which I think you don't necessarily get that long term working for somebody else. It's hard to keep that passion, and I hope more people take the risk based on what they've listened to.
Well, I'm glad that comes across because I do love my business, and I've tried to be open about it. It's it's the best thing and the hardest thing I've ever done, starting a business. And I would encourage anyone out there who's thinking about starting a business or is a one-man person, just go for it. Like, give it a go, throw everything at it, and don't be put off if the sector that you're wanting to work in isn't seen as one of the super sexy high growth sectors, because architecture certainly isn't. But that's where the opportunities lie. There's still huge opportunities to be made.
Yeah,
there are loads of
non-sexy sectors.
Loads of recruitment sectors out there that where companies are just desperate for good service, and there's going to be ways for you to go in and disrupt them.
Amazing. Ryan, we'll get you on again in the future, mate, and see where the update is, see what domination you've created in the architecture space. But in the meantime, have an amazing Christmas, and I wish you the best of luck.
Cheers, Sean. You too.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the RAG Podcast. If you haven't already, please do subscribe wherever you listen to this show. As the more subscribers we get, the more people will listen and the more recruitment owners we can help. As a recruitment founder, you must know that things are changing. AI is everywhere. Cold outreach is getting harder, and job boards, well, they're not what they used to be. But personally, despite the negativity, I believe the future is the greatest opportunity of our lifetime in recruitment, because for the first time ever, a founder with 5 recruiters with a clear niche and the right systems can build the kind of influence, reach, and profitability that used to take 500 recruiters and a global office network. The agencies that are winning right now aren't necessarily the biggest, but they are the most visible, the most trusted, and the ones building inbound demand. At Hoxo, we're working with clients who are running multiple 6 and 7 figures in net profit, outperforming the negative noise and headlines. So, to explain what these guys are doing, I've created a brand new free masterclass video for RAG listeners. In this video, it's less than 10 minutes long. I'm going to show you what these businesses are doing differently from the rest. So the link's in the description. Fill in the form, watch the video, and see exactly how this system that these clients are using could work for your agency. Good luck.